Today's guest has been a professional speaker for over 25 years and is one of the leading authorities in leadership and personal growth. He is an ACC-certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, as well as a master trainer and a member of the National Speakers Association. He was honored as an Entrepreneur of the Year in the Tri-Cities in 2021. Welcome to the show, Paul. How are you doing?
Oh, it's a delight to be with you here today. Let's have some fun.
Yes, let's do that. Let's do that. It's a great delight to have you on the show also. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Mirror Talk. I would just love to start off with learning from your life and career journey so far. Like, what inspired you to become a professional speaker?
Well, I started out as a fifth grade teacher, so in elementary school, and that was my first career. I felt called to educate, and I still feel called to educate. Started with the littlest guys, the little fifth graders and gals, and then I became a vice principal at a school and then an elementary school principal. And in that very second year of being a teacher, I got to go to a teacher convention, and it was in Anaheim, California, the biggest one. It was a private school convention, and the biggest one in the country. And I sat through all these breakout sessions and general sessions, and I didn't get anything practical out of the whole 2 days. And I was really disappointed because I wanted stuff that I could use right away in the classroom with my students. But it was all philosophical. And there's value, of course, in that as well. But I thought, man, I didn't get anything out of this. And I felt like God say, well, then you do it. So I decided the next year that I would put my name in to do a breakout seminar on fun review games for the classroom, like how to show if you're learning, but making it fun. And I had 35 people in my little seminar, and I loved it. It was so much fun to give practical tips to other teachers. And that started my speaking journey. I did that every year. It expanded to 7 different regions in the United States. And I had to keep developing new seminars. And so that is what started my journey on the speaking side of things.
Wow, that's so wonderful. And then you went into, this leadership journey and also personal development journey too. How did that come about? How did you, dive into the world of personal development and leadership?
Yeah, on the personal leadership, I think there's just something inside of me that wants to grow. It's one of my 3 core values: my faith, my family, and then growth is my other one. And I just have this compelling need to keep growing in all areas of my life. So I don't know. I think God put it in me, but it's just this, I want to keep moving forward in all of the different areas of my life. So I named my business Growing Forward Services because not only do I want to keep growing forward, but I want to help all the people I meet grow forward. So I think that's what started the personal development journey. The leadership journey, I remember interviewing for a job coming out of being a school principal and having an interview committee ask me, so do you read a lot of leadership books? And I was about 30 years old. And I remember saying, no, I actually don't. I haven't read any leadership books. And they talked about some of the big leadership gurus, and I didn't know any of them. And that really got me reading. And now I just love reading leadership and personal growth books. I read 52 books last year, Toby, just on these 2 topics. And I know that probably makes me sound boring, but I really love those 2 topics.
That's good. Yeah, and that's why I'm so glad I'm speaking with you today, because I want to gain from the knowledge that you've acquired from all the over 52 books that you read already. so we could put all of the knowledge into this episode, and everyone out there could also, and I myself also could benefit from it. So that'll be so awesome. That was so great. Yeah. And one thing that intrigues me, and one thing that I also want to love to learn from you is about this time management. And it's so wonderful because you help people take back their calendars and restore their sanity to their lives. So can you kindly explain how you do this and how you do this through time management?
Yes, time management is so critical. And just about, if I were to say all of my coaching clients, they all wrestle with the same thing. If you really dial it down, just about all of us struggle with how we use our time. And how we use our time is how we live our life, right? So it's very critical for us to live intentionally every single day. One of the books I wrote was Maximizing Every Minute, because That's what I believe in my heart, is to maximize every minute. Now, that doesn't mean you work all the time. I mean, you add in rest, you add in family time, you add in personal development time. But it's all those choices are intentional about how we use our time. So that's how I got into that. And that's what compels me to share that message with the world, because I see a lot of stressed out people. I see a lot of people's procrastinating the most important priorities of their life. So that's how I got into the time management field.
Yeah, oh, that's good. And how can we, take control of our calendars? Like if there's someone out there who wants to get started right now in organizing his or her calendar, or making the best use of the calendar, what's the best way to start with this?
Well, the first thing I would say, and a lot of people want to skip this step, is to manage your calendar around your values and your vision. Now, I know that's the one philosophical tip of the 12, that I like to share, but we want to start there, because you have to manage your calendar based on what's most important to you. So that's your core values. And then where you want to go with your life, whether that's your business, your marriage, your parenting, all the different areas, your wellness. And so I like to encourage clients to make a 1-year picture or 1-year vision of their life. And then once you have that in mind, now we can dial back to today's calendar and start setting some habits in place in order to get yourself to living your values and getting to that vision. So that would be the first step. The first practical tip I would give is every single day, the last half hour of your day, your work day, is to schedule on your calendar a daily review preview. So during that half hour, before you hang it up for the day, you're going to look back at your day and say, what did I accomplish today? And then you've collected some tasks too. So you're going to pull all those little Post-it notes and all those other things together in one place. And you're going to look at that list and say, what are the 3 top priorities for tomorrow that I need to tackle? That if I get nothing else done, but I get those 3 done, I'll feel like a success tomorrow. And then you shut off the light on today and you go into your life and you say no to work for the rest of the night. Tomorrow you get at it and you try to attack those priorities the first thing in the morning and get those checked off. And this is going to start you out on a really great success productivity for the rest of the day.
Oh, that's good. And when it comes to, organizing what we have to do for the next day, for example, like you just said, are there like some guidelines or some rules that we could use to, prioritize or to organize our task for the next day, for example, or for the week?
Yes. One tool I like to use is called priority ranking. You probably wouldn't do this every day, but it'd be good practice to start out with. You list all of your tasks on a piece of paper. Right next to it, you put 3 columns. The first column is urgency. The second column is importance. And then the third column is the total. So what you do is you scale your first task from 1 to 10, 10 being the most urgent, like you have to get that done the soonest possible. A 1 would be like, whenever. I got to do it, but it's not that urgent to get it done. Then you score that same task on importance. How critical to your success in that area of your life or business do you need to get that done? Scale of 1 to 10 again. 10 is like, it's so important I'd get fired or I would lose clients if I didn't do it. A 1 would be, they might not even know that I'm not doing it. Then you multiply those 2 scores together and you get the total. So you do that with each one of those main things on your to-do list, and you'll come up with some scores off to the right. There would be some hundreds, like it's a 10 and a 10, and there'd be some really low scores, maybe some 1s on there. What that's going to show, Toby, is what things are truly top priority that you need to tackle first by re-ranking now by those scores. And then those become your big 3. Now, I don't have a lot of clients that do this like every day. Like that would take a lot of work to have to score that up every day. But if you do it a few times, you start then doing it automatically and your brain starts to prioritize for you.
Oh, that's good. Those are very wonderful tips. And are there also like some tips or methods or maybe tools that we could make use of to effectively, organize our calendars and restore sanity to our lives? Like, for example, if we have, I don't know, a lot of tasks to do or a way to go through our day, is there a way we could, organize and manage our times effectively well?
Yes, sir. The thing that revolutionized my personal time management, and I would say it tripled my productivity, is called time blocking. A lot of the other time management gurus in the world like to talk about time blocking. Time blocking is making an appointment with yourself on your calendar. So instead of using a to-do list, which most of us have some type of to-do list, and
Yeah.
it's okay to have one to write it all down. But what I found is I looked at that, I'm like, this is an I don't want to do list. Like, I don't want to do those things. They all
Yeah.
look hard. And I
Mm,
look for the easy one to cross off, right, and get
mm,
it done.
mm,
But the big ones are still on there. So what I did to blast away at that procrastination was I would take the priority and I would find my calendar and carve out a block of time to do just that task, as if it was an appointment with you at a coffee shop. Like I would never stand you up in a coffee shop and go, oh, I'm not going to go today. But
yeah.
why do we do this to ourselves, Toby? Why do we say, like, no, I don't want to do that right now? And then we procrastinate it another day.
Mm,
So when that block of time comes up on your calendar, you obey your calendar
yeah.
and you do it unless there's someone in your face talking to you. You actually just go ahead and do that task. It
Mm,
feels great to honor that commitment with yourself,
mhm.
and you'll get those big three priorities done better than you ever have before.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Well, and Paul, I'd love to know, like, what led you to your, study of the best practices in time management? What made you go deep into the, findings and the research of the best practices for time management?
Well, it's a great question, and it's not a sexy answer, but I was a teacher, and teachers have to be very organized. They have
Mm,
to, especially elementary teachers, because you have to schedule in science and social studies and language arts and recess and to get all that in a day. And you have to be on the clock like all the time to make sure you get all that in a day. Then I walked into my boss's office, who was the principal of the school, and I said, it looked like a bomb went off in his office. I mean, it was just like disorganized. There's piles this, 2 feet high
mm,
and papers strewn everywhere. We've all been there where our desks look like that. And I said, can I help you organize that?
yeah,
Because organizers, we love to help organize everybody else too.
that's true.
And so it's sort of a curse. And he said, yeah, I'm going to a conference. You go ahead and organize this however you want. And I'll be looking forward to that when I get back. So
Mm,
I put everything in piles. There was memos back then and things to read and budget things and other stuff. And some I just tossed in the garbage because it was outdated.
mhm,
But in that to read pile was a thing called the Organized Executive. It was a pamphlet that had just 4 pages of time management tips. And this was way back in the early 1990s. And I loved that pamphlet. And he said, you can have it. And so I started implementing one at a time the time management principles in that pamphlet until I tried things that worked and didn't work, until I had 40 or 50 ideas. And I thought, what if other people could benefit from what I'm learning? And that's what got me started.
mm. Oh, I love that. That's so good. Thanks for sharing that. And looking back into your story or what you shared already about you being working in the high school, for example, being an high school principal, for example, and also now what you do as an entrepreneur and a leader, and a speaker and a podcaster also, and that adding all of that to the mix of time blocking also. I would love to ask this question. Sometimes when we block times for ourselves, from what I've understood from what you explained, when we block times for ourselves to say, okay, at this time I'm going to do this particular task, but then other things come into play. For example, you're a father to you're also a husband to your beautiful wife also, and then there are other tasks that come from her or from your children or from work also, and you have to block time for them. And when this time, blocks conflict each other, what do you do when you have to do something between 7 and 9 p.m. for yourself, and your wife also has to do something between 7 and 9 p.m. that involves you also? What do you do?
Well, it's always other people first. That's what I believe. Like, I'm going to prioritize the needs of my family over my own, but for those random times, right?
Mm,
For the most of the time, I'm going to honor that time with myself, my personal wellness time. But there are those occasions, like you just described, where there are two of them in conflict. I'm always going to prioritize someone else's need over my want that I want to do at that moment.
Mm.
Then what I have to do though, when I say yes to changing the plan,
Mm.
because I'm a big plan guy, then I have to go back to my calendar and move that block to the earliest block that I have open in my week. Because if I don't, then it falls off the radar
Yeah.
screen, right? And then I wake up 3 days later and go in the shower like, oh no, I forgot to do that thing. It got bumped
Yeah.
off my calendar. So I
Yeah.
have to then move that block to somewhere else so I don't forget about it.
I love that. Thank you so much. That means we always, I mean, whenever we have to, change our plans, we have to look for an alternative date or time block for that, for or time slot for that, block of tasks we want to do.
Yes.
Yes, yes. That's good. You work with a lot of clients, and what I would love just to know, what are some of the common traits that you find among them? What are the common frustrations, the common lessons or common problems that they have when it comes to time management?
Yes, they really have. They would say that they would have too much to do for the amount of time that they have.
Mm.
Now, a lot of the time, that is actually a true statement. They have too many tasks for the blocks of time that they have in their calendar. So, in those situations, first of all, I would give them these habits to try first. But if they're unsuccessful at still getting their priorities taken care of, they're going to have to try some other strategies. Delegation is very difficult for leaders, for a lot of leaders to do because they feel like, oh, I don't want to bother somebody else.
Mm.
They got a lot on their plate too. Or, you know what, this is just easier for me to do myself and bang it out than it is to delegate to somebody else. So
Mm.
I really try to work with them to increase their delegation. Not only will it get stuff off of their plate, but it will develop this other person and increase their skill level, their ability to handle problems when the leader isn't around themselves. So that whole too much to do thing is a biggie. Also, the lack of just calendaring intentionally, like we've been talking about, people are reactive. They just are putting out fires all day long. And they get to the end of the day and they're exhausted because the calendar has run them. They didn't run their calendar. So
Yeah.
all that putting out of fires is exhausting. And I try to help them like go upstream and figure out, okay, what happened there? Why do you keep having to put out fires? Is there a system that needs to be created? Or is there something you can offload to someone else so that this doesn't happen again? So those are two big problems: lack of delegation and being reactive in how they use their time.
Yeah. And do you have like ways of solving the problem of delegation? Like when there are people, the people out there that they believe that, for instance, there are people that believe that, okay, I can do this. I'm the only one that's in the capacity to correctly do this task or this number of tasks. And then, it becomes so overwhelming because there are a lot of tasks to be done and they seem to be equally important. And when you're prioritizing them, they seem to be on the same level of priority also. But then you are thinking about delegating and okay, this is the problem of delegating, but I don't know how to solve this problem of delegating when I don't know who to delegate it to.
Yes, that's a very common problem that you bring up there. And you brought up like there are things at my level in the company that only I can do, right? You can't
Yeah.
delegate those
Yeah.
because they're in your job description. So first of all, I would say get very familiar with your job description and what are those things that are truly top priority that only you can do, because the company needs you to do those things, to be at 30,000 feet in an airplane, right? Looking out over the horizon. They don't need you down on the tarmac, doing the smaller jobs that pretty much anyone in the company could do if they were trained well enough to
Yeah.
do it. So I would say familiarize yourself with your job description and what are the most important things for you. But now you're right. There are going to be like these equal tasks that I've got to do all of these things.
Mm.
And so what I would say is put those on a whiteboard, like literally write down the main things that you have to do, the projects and the commitments that you have in leadership,
Yeah.
and then start breaking those into pieces. Chip away at the big task and say, what piece of this task can I give away? to someone on my team that might be hungry for learning a new skill or has the margin in their calendar to be able to receive that. And they also just want to be helpful in the company. Just give them a piece. If they're successful with the piece, then you give them a bigger piece of that project or another one, until over time they might be able to replace you in that project.
Yeah, oh, that's good advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, yes. So I'd love to ask a question that regards to consistency and time management also, or delegation also in this case too. Sometimes we start out with delegating tasks, or we start out with managing our time effectively, and it's all sweet and rosy for the first week, second week, and before we know it, when we look back 1 month, it's like something just went off the radar. We are back to where we were 3 weeks ago before starting time management. So how do we stay consistent with these time management skills? How do we make it an habit or a lifestyle basically, so that we could effectively manage our time all through without falling off the radar or stopping it?
Yes. And that's very true, because we're human. We're going to mess up. We are going to fall off the wagon once in a while on this, because time management, just like any other personal development habit, takes discipline, self-discipline. I had one guy raise his hand in one of my seminars, and he said, Paul, all this is well and good, but really time management comes down to self-discipline, right? And I said, yes. And we all laughed, which means we're going to run out of willpower every now and then, and we're going to go back to our old ways. So I think one way to answer that question is to make sure that your big why. The Simon Sinek Start With Why book is really critical. You have to say, like, I am tired of being overwhelmed. I am tired of procrastinating. I am tired of not getting my priorities done and always running behind or being late with my deliverables, right? There has to be a big enough, and those are all the avoiding pain motivations, right? Like, I don't want any of those things. Then you got to maybe find some whys that are more positive. Like, I want to be at peace in my soul. Like, I want to work at a sustainable pace. I want to get ahead of the vision for my company. I want my family to be happy with me and not be grumbling that I'm working again because I couldn't keep up with the pace. So there has to be a big enough why to overcome the excuses of getting off of these time management systems. So that would be number one. The second thing I would answer your question with, Toby, is do a weekly review, just like I taught the daily review. A weekly review allows you to go 7 days. You're never going to go more than 7 days without getting back on track. If you have the weekly review, unless you recap the week and look ahead at next week and see what are your big priorities then. At that moment, usually it hits you like, all right, I'm off the wagon. I didn't do what I said I was going to do, but hey, come hell or high water, I'm going to get back on that next week. And I'm not going to let another 7 days go by going back to my old default ways.
Oh, that's good. Yes. So a weekly review is very important. Yes.
Yes.
I find that. Yeah. Work on that. So I would love to talk about your podcast. You have this awesome podcast called the Grow Forward Today podcast. And on this podcast, you inspire us with practical mindsets, tool sets, and skill sets to grow forward on our personal leadership development journeys. So would you love to share more about this podcast? We'd love to tell us the story behind. Why did you start the podcast?
Well, I started a local podcast here in my area in the state of Washington. So we're in southeastern Washington state here in the U.S. And it's a local one because I wanted to promote local leadership and see who is making a difference in our community. And then hopefully to get some local sponsors that would like to sponsor it, because then it would be heard by the local community and they would get their message out. So that was when I started that. And I'm close to 100 episodes on the local podcast. But then I thought, in order to spread this good stuff, just like you are, spreading value added tips and concepts and principles, I'm going to have to go a little bit more national or international. And the only way to do that is I'm going to have to now broaden my audience with a national podcast. And so that is the motivation for doing that. and then interview people outside of my area, across the country, across the world, that I would get to interview. And then my message can get out to a broader group of people, and their message can get out to a broader group. And hopefully along the way, we get to spread more of the good news of personal leadership development, which is the theme of my podcast, personal
Yeah.
leadership development.
Yes, that's true. And when you talk about leaders and leadership, what's your definition of a great leader or a great personal leader? What would that be?
Oh yeah, I've come up with my own little leadership definition. I've got it up on my wall here.
Yeah.
It is inspiring, intentionally developed teams to achieve transformational visions.
Mm,
So each one of those words is carefully chosen. Inspiring, because I don't think leadership is banging people over the head, and trying to get them to do something, right? You want to inspire them to do something.
mm,
Intentionally developed teams, I really believe that leaders get things done through other people. They don't, it's not how much they can get done themselves, it's how much they can empower others. So intentionally develop means you've got to hire well, through interviewing and onboarding and development, and training of your people. And then to achieve transformational vision, I think a leader's important. All leaders must have a big, compelling vision for their organization. The companies that don't have that, the people are bumping into each other and they don't know what they're doing. And a lot of people leave if they don't know where they're going. So vision is critical, and not just any vision, not a vanilla vision, but a transformational vision,
okay.
something that makes people go, wow, I want to pursue that.
Mm,
That is something that's making a difference in people's lives.
yeah.
So inspiring intentionally developed teams to achieve transformational vision is what I would say leadership is.
I love that definition, like transformational visions, yes, and you inspiring teams to do that also with you. Yeah, yeah. And do we need some skill set, or what are some tool set or skill sets that we need to develop our own leadership development journey, or to become that leader that you just described right now?
Yes. So the vision would be the first thing I would say is you've got to have a fire in your belly that is, this is where we need to go as an organization. So it takes time to develop that. It takes listening. You got to listen to your team and the market and see what is out there, that the need that needs to be filled. You need to then start building buy-in with your core team, and then all the way to every member of your organization. And so then you need to cast that vision, and then you have to carry that vision. In other words, keep it going over time
Mm,
so nobody forgets it.
mm,
So I would say vision's number one. Number two is relationship building. I know I want to follow a leader who cares about me, or who I think cares about me,
mhm,
someone who is going to help me achieve the goals that help the company.
mm,
And sometimes leaders get trapped behind their desks and they don't get out among the people.
mm,
And that doesn't build a lot of trust. But the leaders that get out among and are good listeners and communicate well and stay close to their people,
yeah.
those are the leaders that I think get more engagement from their
Mm,
employees. So vision and relationship building, I would say, are the top two skills that all leaders need to master.
mm. That's true. And when we are good leaders, or when we are great leaders, we also want to always, set goals and achieve goals and ensure that our team also, you know, achieve that transformational visions that we've set for our company and organization. So are there like some practical tool set that we could make use of for setting goals and effectively, achieving those goals also?
Yes, goal setting is a lot of fun to talk about too, because without goals, we just have New Year's resolutions, right? They're just
Yes.
things we throw out there, and we just go, oh, it's February. We don't need those. We don't need those anymore.
Yeah.
And like 85% of New Year's resolutions don't happen.
Mm,
But a goal, a really well-written goal, is it's inspiring. It's internally motivating, and it makes you want to go after it. I don't like should goals, like I should lose weight, or I should do one-to-ones with my employees, or I should, develop vision. Those aren't motivating at all. Those feel like guilt-inducing kinds of things. A true goal is something that really pulls you forward. You've probably heard of the acronym SMART, SMART goals, right? SMART goals are goals that are very specific. They're not vague, like I want to be a better father, or a better husband. It's like, that's, what does that mean? Like I can't tell if I'm actually achieving that. So it's got to be specific. The M is measurable. We have to be able to track it, because what we track usually gets done. So it has to be measurable. It has to be attainable. We don't want to pick a goal that's too pie in the sky that, it's like, I hope I get that, but it seems a little ridiculous that I would get there. We don't want to do those goals. It's got to be enough to stretch us, but not that it's ridiculous. The R is, it's got to be relevant to your job description, or if you're an entrepreneur, relevant to the vision you have for your business, or your vision for your life, if it's a personal vision. You don't want to pick a goal that's like an extra thing over here to the side. No, it's got to be aligned with where you're going. And then the T in SMART is, it's got to be time dated. There has to be I'm going to do this by the end of the month, by the end of the year, every Tuesday at 2:00 for 30 minutes a day. If there's no time by it, again, the time management principle applies here. Goal setting and time management go hand in hand, because once you set the goal, now you've got to stick it in your calendar and make sure that it happens. Let me add here that there's another guy named Mark Murphy who came up with HARD goals, HARD, and he takes it to the next level. He said a goal needs to be heartfelt. So there has to be an emotional connection to the goal for you to want to pursue it. A is animated. In other words, you have to be able to see yourself or visualize yourself doing the goal in order to take the next step, or else you're going to stay right here. R is required, meaning you can't not do it. It's just like, I have to do this in order to get to the next step. And then D is difficult. You don't want to pick a goal that's like a to-do item that takes 5 minutes on your calendar. No, it's going to be multiple steps that at the end of the year, you look back and you go, wow, that was really hard, but I did it.
Yeah.
So those are some great ways to craft a good goal.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that means we have to also make use of our time management skills in this, while trying to achieve our goals. So yes, it's very important. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That means, from what you just saying, I'm just getting the understanding that every second, every minute, every hour of a day is very important towards, achieving our goals. Like, we have to ensure that we do the time blocking, like you said earlier, ensure that we have everything well scheduled. Our calendar is not a mess. It is well organized, and we have the priority also set already. That's effective and important. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's that, the framework is, develop your vision and then develop your goals. And then you're going to time manage according to those goals. And then you're going to review to make sure nothing falls off the radar. If that was a framework that you could picture in your mind, that's how you're going to live an intentional life.
And are there like some personal tools that you have developed, throughout your life journey or career journey that the listeners or I myself could make use of to effectively become better in our time management or leadership development skills, journey and skills?
Yes. So I have written 5 books. They're just little books. The average person reads 1 book a year, and I'm like, no way, 1 book a year. But so I write little books that are like less than 100 pages. There are 3 books on leadership: leading the team you've always wanted. Those are inspirational actions to shape your group into a team. Leading with supervision. So that's how to craft, cast, and carry a compelling vision. And then my newest one is leading through the dark waters of conflict, because we all have to have those hard conversations. On the personal growth side of things, I wrote one called the static cling principle, which is mindsets that you need to attach to your life and ones you need to pull off of your life because they're not serving you. And then my time management book, Maximizing Every Minute, has a whole bunch of these strategies in there that I've learned over the years. And Toby, I would love to offer your listeners a free gift too. It's my Control My Calendar checklist. So if you want to get started in the time management journey and restore sanity to your life, what you do is you open a text message to 72000, 72,000, and type the word growing to 72000, and I'll send that to you, the Control My Calendar checklist. Or you can go to takebackmycalendar.com, takebackmycalendar.com, and you can get that there.
Oh, that's good. Thank you so much. I'll place the information to your website in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone to just click on the website, copy the link, and take use make use of the these tools that could bring back sanity into our lives. Yeah, yeah. So I'd love to ask a question regarding personal growth journey. I would love to know the importance of giving and receiving feedback, and how does this affect, sorry, our personal development growth?
Wow, I think if we don't have feedback sources around us, um, we can be a mess. We can be have a lack of self-awareness.
Mm,
Self-awareness is another one of those top skills of leadership. The CEOs that make the most money on the planet have a keen sense of self-awareness,
mm,
which I think that's a pretty powerful thing to say, that of all the leadership skills, they've got self-awareness as number one. And so if we have feedback sources around us, we become more self-aware because we're listening and saying, oh, that's how I'm coming across. I
mm,
probably should tweak that a little bit. If
mm.
we don't have feedback around us, then we're legends in our own mind, right? We just keep operating the way we're operating, and we don't know if we are offending people or if we are missing out on other techniques to actually draw people to ourselves. So I would say you've got to be a part of a mastermind group or hire a coach or get with your core team at work and say, you got to shoot straight with me, everybody. If I'm saying something that doesn't make any sense, please point that out.
Mhm.
So you are totally right on that. We have to have feedback going both ways to be a great leader.
Yes. And how do we deal with, how would you advise us to deal with, criticism, like, constructive and deconstructive criticism? How do we deal with that, from the external factors, from people around us and environments?
Yeah, I always wondered this too because everybody loves to give unsolicited advice, right? And
Yeah.
now that we have social media for these, past 15 years, people just drop bombs. They just they hit and run, right? They say whatever they want to say, and there's no accountability.
Mhm,
So I wouldn't listen as much to people who don't care about you and who aren't for your success.
mhm,
And I would raise that level of receptivity to those who care about you and are for your success.
mhm,
So you start with that very small circle and you listen to everything that they say, big time. Then you start going out with different circles until finally there's people that don't know you that are judging you. And I wouldn't listen to that much at all because all that does is they're seeking to hurt you or
mhm,
take you down, or they're jealous, or some other negative motive. But there could be a grain of truth there, so I wouldn't say completely disregard it, because there might be a grain of truth or a nugget there that we could glean something from. But I would say really listen to the constructive criticism of those that are closest to you.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. And from your rich life experiences so far, can you advise us on how we could have a successful and balanced life? Like, I know, as I said earlier, you're a family man, you have your wife, you have your children, you have your pets, and you have this, business also that you run, you have podcasts, you have books that you've written. How do you balance it all and have success in every area of life?
Well, it goes back to blocking time again. So
Mm.
I literally, Toby, block time for everything. And I know if you looked at my calendar right now, it'd probably make you nauseous. It'd be like that guy is insane. So I
Mm,
might be a little obsessive compulsive about this stuff, but it's all in the service of being intentional. So I block out date night with my wife every week.
mm,
My kids are now grown, and so whenever I get to see them, I block out time to have dinner with my adult children.
mhm,
I block out exercise time every day, like I did it this morning.
mm,
I block out time to read professionally and inspirationally. I block out time to file. Yes, I know that sounds really weird, but once a
mm.
week, I
Yeah,
block out 30 minutes to file papers,
yeah.
where I can find them. And otherwise, I would procrastinate that and my paperwork pile would. So I
Mhm,
literally block time for all of the priorities that are big and small
mhm.
in order to get them in my month. And then they do a monthly review. So I already talked about a daily review, right? And then a weekly
Yes.
review. The
Yeah.
monthly review for me is, I'm so excited because I get to do it on Saturday, where I block out hours of time once a month. And I think about all those areas of my life that you mentioned. to make sure that they are growing forward.
Mhm.
And if they're not, guess what? I go to my calendar and
Yeah.
I start putting in action items to make sure that that area is growing. So the monthly review is that thing that allows me to take that high level view
Mhm.
of my life, that balcony view that I look down at the dance floor
Yeah.
and I say like, oh, that's working and that's not working.
I love that. I'm going to make use of that also. Having the daily, the weekly, and the monthly review, and using that to adjust my calendar also. Like giving myself feedback also, basically, in that sense.
Yeah, that's right. You're giving
Yeah.
yourself feedback.
Wow, that's so good. Thank you so much, Paul. I've learned so much from you in this episode, but I'm sure like there are a lot of questions or a lot of inquiries that people still have to make, and maybe they want to get across to you personally to make those inquiries. So, what's the best way to connect and work with you in this regard?
Probably my website is the first place I'd send everyone, growingforwardservices.net, growingforwardservices.net. And that's all things Paul Casey. And of course, I'm on the social medias as well, Paul D. Casey on LinkedIn,
Mm,
and Growing Forward Services on pretty much everything else, Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and all those other places. So
yeah.
Growing Forward Services or Paul D. Casey.
Okay, see, thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate this wonderful moment I've shared with you. I thank you so much for teaching me so much about time management skills, personal leadership skills also, and how we could live a successful and balanced life all through. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Toby. Keep growing forward, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.